Broadcasting live from the North Fulton Business RadioX studio, it's time for To Your Health with Dr. Jim Morrow. To Your Health is brought to you by Morrow Family Medicine, an award-winning primary care practice, which brings the care back to healthcare.
Hello and welcome to episode 52 of To Your Health with Dr. Jim Morrow. I am Jim Morrow. I am at the Morrow Family Medicine, now a member of Village Medical Office in Cumming, Georgia. We do have locations in Cumming and Milton, Georgia, where we see well people in Cumming and sick people in Milton, and we're trying to separate people affected by the pandemic in that way. We are, as we like to say, bringing care back to health care, and we're very excited about now being a part of Village Medical. I'm very excited today about the podcast. It's the first one that I can remember when I didn't have some sort of notes in front of me. We're going to talk today about CBD oil, and we've got a guest that I'm looking forward to getting to in just a minute. Before we do that, as I have usually done in recent months and weeks, is I'm going to talk a little bit about coronavirus. It wouldn't be a Wednesday if we didn't talk about coronavirus, I don't think. So recently, just last weekend, I believe it was, the FDA approved the Johnson & Johnson Addox vaccine for coronavirus, for SARS-CoV-2. This is a vaccine that is much different from the other two. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines are based on an mRNA backbone, and they took a little piece of the spike protein and inserted it into that mRNA, and they put it in your arm, and it gets in your cell, and you're immune to that spike protein and therefore the virus. And the Johnson & Johnson is very different. The other two have to be frozen, one of them at very low temperatures, which is kind of inconvenient. The other one just at normal freezer temperatures. And the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine, you can store in a regular medical refrigerator, and you can store it for long periods of time, at least 12 months in that refrigerator, as long as you hadn't opened it. Now, none of these vaccines have preservatives. So as far as the vaccines themselves, once you open them, you have to use them in a fairly short period of time. But Johnson & Johnson is one shot. Moderna and Pfizer are 2, 3 or 4 weeks apart. And the fact that it's easily stored and the fact that it is only one vaccine or one shot is going to really make it very popular, I think, across the globe, because it's going to be much easier for people to give and to store. So I'm excited about that. Now, if you read about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine versus the Moderna or Pfizer vaccines, you're going to see a difference in efficacy. You're going to see that Moderna and Pfizer are 94, 95% effective. And you're going to read that Johnson & Johnson is 60 or so percent effective. And that's going to scare the life out of you. And you're going to think, why in the world would I ever get that vaccine? That one's not very effective at all. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine, though, is 100% effective in preventing severe disease, hospitalization, and death. And really, that's what we're after. We're trying to get people not to be sick, debilitated, harmed in some long-term way from SARS-CoV-2 or COVID-19. And the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is doing a wonderful job of that, whereas it's not preventing all infection. It is keeping people from having bad outcomes. So it's going to be a really good choice. And I'm quite certain that over time, over the years, because it's going to be here, we're going to fight this forever now, the people will find that the J&J vaccine is tweaked in ways that it's more effective against this and that and does a little bit better, and they may change the dose a little bit and that kind of thing. But right now, we're blessed to have 3 vaccines. We have 3 vaccines against an infection that did not exist 14 months ago. And if you take a second to let that soak in, that is absolutely unbelievable. There are so many viral infections and infections in general, diseases, that we still have not been able to come up with a vaccine against. It is an absolute blessing that we are able to fight this infection now with vaccines that are very safe, very effective, and affordable because there's no cost to them. So that's my update on coronavirus for today, March the 10th, 2021. And I mentioned earlier we were going to talk about CBD oil, and I get asked a lot of questions about CBD oil. Probably the most common one is, how high can I get from CBD oil? And today we're blessed to have a guest with us. We have Apollon Constantinides from Lakeside Pharmacy. I'm sure I butchered that, Apollon, and I apologize. From Lakeside Pharmacy in Cumming, Georgia. Now, if you don't know Lakeside Pharmacy in Cumming, Georgia, and you live anywhere in Forsyth or something that approaches the border of Forsyth County, you really should get to know them. I was practicing in Cumming when Apollon opened this store. It immediately became the go-to store. I'm going to let him tell you a little bit about Lakeside. But Apollon, thank you so much for joining me today.
Happy to be here. Long-time listener, first-time caller, so to speak. I have certainly enjoyed your podcast, and we've been friends for a while. So I'm happy you chose to talk to me.
Yeah, we have known each other since you came to Cumming, really, and it has been a great relationship. I was in the same building as the pharmacy for many, many years, and it was great because I could send the prescription electronically to Lakeside, and by the time the patient could go down 2 floors and walk in the door, it was in a bag ready, waiting for them to go out. And if there's anything about a pharmacy that will improve sales more than anything else, I think is one of them's got to be that kind of service. I love that, and I appreciate what you do and everybody there at Lakeside and the job that you do. And again, thanks for coming on. Now, I know you started stocking CBD oil not too long after it became popular. So tell me about how that all started, if you would.
So we've actually been asked to dive into this for several years with having 2 cancer centers in our building, and unfortunately, it wasn't legal in Georgia yet. We were pretty close to having it, and the Farm Bill didn't pass. Then in December of 2018, Georgia did pass the Farm Bill, and we had everything kind of ready to go. So I think about 6 days after that bill passed, we had it in hand. It's not a cure-all. It doesn't do everything. It does about 6 things really well, and if you stay in that wheelhouse, you've got great percentage chance of being successful in treatment with it. It's just one of those things that fits. It fits and fills a void in the medical treatment for patients who are not successful in traditional methods or don't want to go down a certain road or just have a unique situation they want to try. It's been a good fit for a lot of folks.
Well, I mentioned I get a lot of questions about it, and tell us what exactly is CBD or cannabidiol oil, which is the term it actually is.
It's derived from the marijuana plant or the hemp plant more commonly, and it is the medicinal component of that plant that will provide any kind of medical benefit. There's no hallucinations with it or any kind of effects of euphoria that the THC component has, which is the other component in those plants, particularly marijuana. And what it does is they have grown these in a way where there's less THC and just the CBD product. And then they also further minimize that by the way they extract it. They can do a cold extraction. They can do an alcohol-based extraction. But these companies are really, really getting into where they can pull just the CBD product out of the plant, which is beneficial because states like Georgia, in a pharmacy, we are only allowed to carry CBD products without any THC in it, which works out fine for me because that's the part that's beneficial anyway. But that's what makes it to where you can get a pure product and know what you're getting. And we get tested by the state and send off independent tests. So we know what we're handling. But that's basically what it is. It's something that's been around since Christ was a boy, and they finally found a way to make it more available mainstream.
So without the THC, you don't get any sort of high from CBD oil. And that's a very important thing for people to understand because people are understandably concerned about that.
As well they should be.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly. So you mentioned there were a half dozen things that CBD oil is really good for. Let's talk about those one at a time so people get a good handle on that.
The number one kind of request or question that we get is obviously treatment of pain due to, arthritis or neuropathy. That's by far number one. And it just so happens back when CBD became legal in Georgia, they were in the throes of combating an opioid epidemic. So I really think that's, if you were to be a fly on the wall down in the legislature, I really feel like that's how this negotiation happened, because they were really trying to reel in an opioid problem throughout the country, particularly in major cities. But they needed to do something to provide patients with relief. And so I think somebody threw somebody a bone. Nobody knows how things are worked out in the House and Senate or the golf course or wherever it is. And yeah, exactly. They came up with a CBD law that was pretty generous for Georgia. And people that experience pain, it can be done, be treated a number of different ways. If you've got arthritis in your hands or your knees or your feet, shoulders, thin-skinned areas where it's very easy to reach, the site of administration and blood flow, topical treatment with CBD is amazing. It is the highest percentage of effectiveness, and you can control when you use it. There's no issue with it. You can put it right where it hurts. Makes a big difference. We carry creams and sprays and roll-ons that use that mechanism of administration. Likewise, if you've got a back pain or something that's a little less surface related, you can do an oral product, something that you put under the tongue like drops, or take a capsule or even a gummy. So that's really where when we sit down and we talk to patients, that's what we do. I sit them down, we go over what they need it for, whether a doctor referred them there or whether they've just heard about it and they want to try it. We sit down with them and go over what they're trying to get out of it, and we try and fit them with the right dose and the right product to set them up for success.
So the topicals, I know the Voltaren cream that went over the counter not too long ago, I've had people that tried to use it for hip pain and low back pain. And just like what you're talking about, it never worked terribly well on those big joints, things that are covered in layers of, in my case, fat, in some cases, muscles. And I think it's interesting that this is just like that for smaller joints and places where you don't have a lot of subcutaneous tissue, that this is going to work better.
It really is. It's just simple. If your percentage of effectiveness starts out 100% right when you rub it in, and then the farther it has to penetrate through tissue, the percentage is just going to drop for the concentration that can get to the site of pain, inflammation, neuropathy, whatever it is. So we try and set people up for success. If they come in and say, I've got back pain or I've got this hip issue, I tell them, I was like, the topical's not going to do it for you. I don't want anybody to waste their money. None of these products do any good stuck in a nightstand drawer. They're not going to work for you. So we try and do some things where we set them up for success. We have been very fortunate with the company that we partner with, that they've done a good job sending us some samples of topicals where we can, if somebody wants to use an oral product, we will try and give them some samples of topical products so they can try it out without having to invest any money. And I tell them, listen, if you got a twinge in your hands or your wrists or your knees, somewhere like this, try it. I said, you'll be amazed. I said, and that's made a big difference. We feel like we can treat a number of people that come in successfully. I'd say we've treated thousands of patients. We're probably about a 90% chance with success with topicals. There are a small percentage of patients who just don't respond to it like other medications, but it's few and far between.
And with the topical, is there any downside? You don't see rashes or irritation, anything like that?
No. There's one of the creams. I've had a few patients that will tell me after they apply it, they notice some itching sensation. And honestly, that's actually a sign that it is working. And most everybody will say 3 to 4 minutes that goes away. And for those patients that do have that and it works for them, but they can't tolerate the itching, we'll switch them to a different product that maybe has a different base or something like that, whether it's a different roll-on or spray or whatnot. That usually alleviates it. But I don't have much of that. And my kids, actually, my 12-year-old son, he plays sports and is in cleats 5 days a week, and his heels will bother him. And he was the very first one to tell me my foot itches. But now he doesn't. He still he swears by it. When he gets home, I'll see him over there putting on his heel, and while he's resting, watching TV, playing his video game, and he swears by it. So that's a good sign for me.
Well, I've got plenty of arthritis in both my hands, and if I'm doing much around the house, I'll get pretty uncomfortable. And I'll tell you, I would trade that feeling for itching any day of the week.
I know it.
So I'm going to have to come by and check that out. I was not aware how good that is. So after pain, I would think, you got depression, anxiety, you got all kind of things. What's next on the list for y'all?
Sleep is next. Sleep. That's the one that we hear the most about after pain. And it's a lot of times, and it's different. It's not, sometimes it's not falling asleep. Sometimes it's just staying asleep or sleeping through the night. And I think it's important for people to know that unlike, say, Benadryl or, any of the number of prescription sleep medications that are out there, you can take CBD in the middle of the day and you're not going to go to sleep. It doesn't work that way. So it's designed to, regulate your sleep cycle and allow your body to do what it does. Most of the time when we can't sleep, there's a reason. And I do talk to patients about, good sleep hygiene. In this day and time of mobile devices and all the technology we have, people don't realize it, but when you get in bed and you sit up and you're sitting there looking at your phone or your tablet, that light, that stimulation, that alone can keep you from getting to sleep or sleeping well. It's just too much stimulation. I'll always tell people the bed is for sleep and relations. And if you want to read or you want to do something else, sit in a chair, do something different. But we do work on that. And so we get them in a good place. We try to minimize, if they're really truly having a sleep issue, we go over caffeine intake and make sure they're not doing anything to stimulate themselves in their diet. And once we've kind of cleared that stuff up, we then will go with a CBD product that we can allow them to get their dose in and get to sleep and have a restful night, so that when they wake up in the morning, they're refreshed and that sort of thing. And a lot of times sleep will yield a whole host of other issues, lack of sleep. So if we can fix that, a lot of times those other things will fix themselves. So sleep is the big thing. That's usually best treated with a capsule, a gummy, or the liquid. The liquid works the fastest, probably onset of 15 to 20 minutes. The gummy is probably in that same neighborhood, maybe a hair longer, and capsules are about 30 to 45 minutes. But again, I tell patients all the time, if you're sensitive to taste or have any issues, this stuff doesn't taste bad, but it doesn't taste great. It's kind of wildly bland. And if it's not something you're going to take, then don't go down that route. We got other ways you can treat it. Sleep is not something that has to be treated like a seizure or a migraine where it's right away. You got some time. Take it 30 minutes, 45 minutes before bed. And that's the way I would go. We do sit down with patients and kind of go over dosages to where because CBD is sold in a lot of areas where it's not necessarily a professional setting, whether it be at a vape shop. Yep, exactly. And I get a lot of people that come in and say, I want to get this from you because I don't trust what's out there. And that's actually a big compliment. I do think it needs to be in the medical setting with their doctor and their pharmacist. We'll get into that in a minute about some of those issues. But what it is whenever there's somebody who doesn't have the medical background, they kind of dabble in it. The doses that I find people are on, they say, I've tried it and it didn't work. And I say, do you happen to know what you took? And about 50% can pull up a picture or pull up online or tell me what they took. And most everybody is severely underdosed. And so you're wasting money, you're wasting effort, you're wasting time, and it's not going to do anything. You do have to get to a therapeutic dose so you can see if this is going to be for you. That's one thing that is a big deal. Is I like to instruct them routinely on exactly where to start, where to go. And I don't just send people out the door with this. This is something that we do. And if you get a CBD product from me, we treat it as if you got a prescription. And it's something that, in 2 weeks, text me, call me, let's discuss and see how we're doing and where we need to go from there. And I think people appreciate knowing that we're there with them along this journey. And that's really what this needs. This isn't just something you pick up and help Wall Street with. We want to kind of fix this issue.
So if you're taking it orally for sleep or pain or anything else, is it the kind of thing like you take an Advil and it works and then it's gone, or do you have to give it a month to see if it's going to work? Or you're kind of talking like you can know pretty quickly.
Well, so the thing that takes a little longer to treat is pain due to arthritis or neuropathy. Now that's not true if you're using it topically. When you use it topically, we see benefit immediately. When you're taking it orally, sometimes that takes 7 to 10 days to kind of get in your system and really kind of do its job. Sleep, again, is a little bit more immediate. I would say I've seen results from sleep, and we'll later get into the next use that's so common is anxiety, panic attacks, that sort of thing. Those work quicker as well. And you can see that from the first time use to maybe 2 or 3 days. And it does depend on the patient, depends on the dose. But that's just what I've seen in the last, 2.5 years where we've really kind of gotten into this. And you can read all you want, you can research and see all that, but I have put together what I consider to be an encyclopedia of knowledge based on talking with patients, seeing how they are, seeing who comes back to get what, and talking to them and saying, but they come in and they ask, I said, I need that bottle or I need this. And I'll ask them, tell me how it's going. What have you noticed? And they give you the best information. It's kind of like an ongoing study. And that is really good information.
Awesome. So, pain, sleep,
anxiety is the next.
Absolutely.
And particularly, we find that the age group of like 16 to about 25, they're in the stage of life where, they're anxious for their next stages. We have, students who are trying to, their senior year is more difficult, or they're graduating, they're headed to college, and their life is changing, and they no, the doctor, the parents, the pharmacist, nobody wants to put them on some sort of a controlled substance, anti-anxiety medication. And years ago, tough love would be, suck it up. That's how it was, and I'm still a fan of discipline and structure and all that. This does give some folks a little bit of a handle on dealing with new things and some change where they feel like they can have a control over that situation. There could be a certain component of it that's psychosomatic. There's others that really notice a difference. The biggest group of people is I see first year college students. They are leaving home. They're going to college. We get parents, and I probably get more parents than kids. They say, my daughter's really nervous. My son's really nervous about this. He's starting this. He's starting that. And they say, I'd like to see about this. And you can get by on a very low dose for that particular scenario. And it really makes it to where they can just take a little deep breath and kind of deal with whatever comes to them. And that's been really beneficial. And again, those you'll do a liquid or a gummy, sometimes capsule, depending on that. Kids are usually, young adults usually want something more instant. That's just that generation. So the faster onset, the better. But that makes a big difference. The good thing about that is it's not when I get nervous, I take something. They'll just take it part of their daily regimen. If they take a vitamin or a birth control pill or something like that, they'll take that, and it just kind of gives them a baseline of control or calmness where they don't have that issue. We also find sometimes that people aren't sleeping well, but they're not really knowing that is their cause of anxiety. And we'll sit down and we'll talk to them and find out that you're anxious because you're not sleeping any. And they say, well, I've never slept well. And I'm like, well, let's look at that. And I said, so I have them try and take it at night. And what it does, it ends up fixing the sleep cycle, which then fixes the anxiety.
And they can do that. You mentioned controlled drugs. They can do that without worrying about going and trying to get a job and having a positive drug test.
Exactly. We have a number of
end up with that because they're not thinking about this. So I think that's very important as well. We certainly see more people today with anxiety than we did, 14, 15 months ago. Everybody knows that. Yep. We recommend this kind of thing a lot because it is a good starting point. And for a lot of people, it's the only point that they need. And so I think if they can do that with something that's as safe as something like this, they will forever be thankful that they didn't have to get on one of the other types of things that a lot of people do end up taking. So I think that's great advice. You mentioned a second ago that there's a difference in time of onset between probably capsules and gummies or liquids. Are gummies and liquids about the same?
From what we can tell, obviously we haven't drawn blood and done studies of that nature, but by talking to patients and kind of getting that feel for it, they are very similar. I would say, the sublingual route is obviously the quickest, but with a gummy, it's very quick. You're talking maybe 5 to 10 minutes more delayed. It's not much. And people feel, and it's just, I guess, just part of life that they would rather have a bottle with a gummy in it as opposed to a jar and a liquid. They don't want to mess up their purse. They're worried about travel, things like that. There's usually, and every now and again you get somebody who doesn't care for the taste. The product that we carry and the line that we carry, they do have a flavored version of the liquid. But we were looking at the studies and research, and you're taking something that's natural and you're adding artificial stuff to it to kind of make it palatable. And most people, although we'll offer that as an option, most people would choose to just go with what it is. That way they're not adding anything else, because people that seek that type of treatment are usually a little more conscious about what they put in their bodies and where it's derived from, that sort of thing. So that is something that gets thrown out. But I'd say
before I was aware that Lakeside was selling this is way back 2+ years ago, I ordered a bottle of the liquid off of Amazon. And I was so excited because I thought it could really do me some good with arthritis and stuff. So it comes, and I took whatever dose it was, and I am telling you, it was, you said wildly bland. That was not this one. This tasted like, honestly, this tasted like someone cut a field of fescue and took a handful of fescue and put it in a blender and blended it up and slugged it down. It was horrible. And I ran across that bottle the other day and went ahead and threw it out. It was just unbelievable. And so some of these things are just not made with anything like that in mind. So I agree 100%. It doesn't make any sense at all to add something artificial to something natural and think you're doing a good thing. But gummies, I think, sounds like a decent plan, I have to admit. So I think people need to understand that all these different options are a very good thing, and they need to put these options to use. And I love the fact that y'all will take some time to talk with people about what the options are. So pain, anxiety, sleep. What's next?
Then it gets into migraines is another one. We have several neurologists in the area that send patients over for migraine treatment. And that can be anything from part of a prophylactic protocol where they take something at the beginning of the day with their other medications, or even if they don't take any medications, they'll take it once a day just in case. And then we do have some that keep it on hand in case they have an onset of a migraine. And we have a patient who has, and I'm probably going to mess this word up, and correct me please, but she has hemiplegic migraines. I don't know if that's exactly right.
That's it. Hemiplegic migraines.
Yeah. She doesn't have pain, but her fingers get numb and she can't speak, and she gets sensitive to light, but there's no pain. And so, as you can imagine, I'm happy that she doesn't have any pain, but at the same time, it's still debilitating nonetheless. And she has had great success with keeping a bottle. She actually gets one of the stronger strengths of it, because the higher the strength you go with, the less volume you have to take for concentration. And she gets a higher strength. I only see her about once or twice a year, but she keeps that. And when she gets one, she says that makes a difference. The doctor has her on a regimen of knowing to take a triptan medication when she gets one, and also with an anti-inflammatory. But she has added this, and sometimes she's even said she uses only this, and it has really made a difference in getting that to go away much, much quicker. That's probably one of my favorite migraine representations, because I'm knock on wood, I don't get those, but they people, I know several patients and people and friends and family that do, and I want to help those folks as much as possible, because that's awful. But the fast onset is really a big deal with them. Another thing I was going to mention to you, one of the things we talk about patients is dosage adjustability. Liquid is obviously infinitely adjustable in dose. The gummies are not too far behind that. You can cut them, half them, quarter them. I've had some people that ate them, and you can get the dose that you're really wanting out of that once you know what you're looking for. And that's part of where the pharmacists and doctors come in, is giving them a guideline on, this is where you need to be. You're kind of, wasting your time if you're not at least at this threshold, and then we kind of go from there. But that's a big effort. The migraines are a big deal. We have a few younger kids. The next thing I would say, and put it along with migraines, is actually like a seizure issue or seizure disorder. We have a number of kids who they're on definitely, anti-epileptic medications, where they have to be on this regularly, but they need something to kind of give them a little bit of breakthrough help, or just maybe they don't like the side effects of their medication. They're trying to go that route. And I certainly want to make sure everybody knows that, we're not looking to, displace the relationship with their doctor and change a therapy on the fly. That's not something you need to do with any of this stuff. You got to make sure the doctors are in charge of what you're doing and let them know. But we have had a few patients that have found relief, particularly as they get into the age of being able to drive. Whenever you have a seizure disorder, if you have an active seizure, you can lose your driver's license for 6 months, and that's an issue.
Year.
Or a year. And so that's something that they try to make sure is not going to be an issue. And then they do the right thing. Most people that have that condition have onset of symptoms where they know what to look for and that sort of thing. So that usually helps with that. But the fact that it works so quickly is a big deal.
Yeah. What about irritable bowel syndrome? I see so many people with IBS.
That's exactly that's one of the next ones that really makes a big difference. And the cancer center upstairs was big about sending people down for nausea and other stomach issues, and irritable bowel was another one. And that's surprisingly been one that when we first started carrying this, I didn't really have on my radar as something that would help, but that is a big deal. That has really made a big difference. And it's simple, it's easy. The capsules do well for that. Some people use the liquid as well, but definitely makes a big difference. And that does vary from patient to patient because what their symptoms might be different. But digestive issues are something that can really benefit from that. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, we're coming up against the half hour, and I wanted to give you a chance, if you would, to say anything else you wanted to say about CBD in general. And then I want you to talk a little bit about Lakeside and tell people how they can get in touch with y'all.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, the biggest thing I could tell people is the setting and where you get. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a pharmacist and I own a pharmacy. That's not it. That is what I know best and where my passion lies. But it is important that people treat this as a medicinal item. And I think they should discuss it with their doctor. I think they should find out if that's something that would be a benefit for them. Then they can come in and see me, sit down. I'm very fortunate. I have 3 other pharmacists besides myself. So when you come in to see me, I'm not always behind the counter, doing. I have a desk out front. You sit down. We'll talk about it's for you. And there's some people I'd say that's not going to help you for what you're looking for. We get people that come in. I had a lady come in who wanted to find out if she could put the CBD oil in her ear for ringing of the ears, and I said no, that's not where I would go with that. But I do get all kinds of questions, and I tell them up front. So listen, this is not. I don't think that's going to help you. I don't want you wasting your time or money or getting yourself in another situation. But it does have a good use. I think if the other thing we were going to talk about was the reason I think it's important to talk with your doctor and your pharmacist is there are a number of medications, or at least classes of medications, that are can interact with a CBD product. Not so much topically. You don't really see it much with that, but an oral product, there's certain blood thinners on the market that the way CBD works is it inhibits the metabolic pathway that drugs are broken down in the body. And so, for example, if you're taking a CBD product and you're taking, say, Coumadin, a blood thinner, or warfarin, that's going to slow down how fast your body breaks that drug down. And that doesn't mean you can't use either one of those or together. We need to know about it. We need your doctor that does your testing needs to know about it. We need to know about it, and we can work through that. But that's something that, I cringe sometimes when I think about, an elderly patient who somebody hears about it and they get something off the internet or bring it over to them and nobody's checking that. I mean, it can have some devastating results. So that's
I'm
where
guessing that includes statins for cholesterol, certain antibiotics and antifungals as well.
Anything on that, cytochrome P450 pathway, it's not as prevalent in some of those from what we've seen or any issues, but it is something that we need to know about. And what we do is when a patient comes to me to get a CBD product, we have a notes field in their chart in our system, and we put down what we gave them, the dose and when, as far as a note of record keeping. And that way, if they're routinely getting something, because we have free delivery for CBD products as well, we want to know what that is. And although it's not a prescription, it's something that we need to kind of keep track of. So if they have an issue, we can give the physician the full picture of what they're taking.
Right. And you mentioned what everybody knows that knows anything about Lakeside, and that's free delivery. And if you've been in Forsyth County, you've seen Lakeside Pharmacy's cars scooting in and out of neighborhoods and up and down the road. And so go ahead and tell us about Lakeside and how we can get in touch with you and where you're located and that kind of thing.
I appreciate it. We're so for starting our 21st year, we've been on the north side Forsyth Hospital campus. For the first 10 years, we were in the 1100 building. And then after that, we were able to get a larger space in the 1505 building, which is where we are currently. It's the best location you could ask for. The north side community and family have been great to us. It's the best place to be, but it's also the last place anyone wants to go with that intersection up there in the hospital. So delivery is really kind of nice. You go to the doctor, you get your prescription, but not only that, when you have refills, you call us, they bring it to your door for free. We have been delivering for free for, like I said, almost 21 years. We started out with one Chrysler PT Cruiser, and a guy came in the afternoon and took some deliveries for 2 or 3 hours. And when we got 3 of those, and then we moved to, in 2008, we moved to Scion XB little cars. We got 5 of those. And just last October, we switched to 5 Kia Souls. So we have 9 delivery drivers on staff. They're all elderly gentlemen that their wife wants them out of the house. They want something to do. And we deliver between 130 and 200 deliveries a day. They take 2 routes. As long as you call it in by noon, you get it the same day. If it's a controlled substance, you have to sign for it per the Georgia Board of Pharmacy regulations. If it's not, we can leave it where you'd like it as long as you feel it's secure. We hand it to most of our patients. But it's something that I did as a kid with my dad, who was a pharmacist. And I knew whenever I opened my pharmacy, I was going to do the same thing. We deliver on a much higher scale than really any pharmacy in the state. And I was told by one of the Board of Pharmacy agents that there's some rules and regulations on the books, mainly because of us, because they had to develop something that was able to, guidelines that we could operate in. And that was a big compliment. And particularly with when COVID-19 hit, we had some delivery days that were above 250. And that's a lot of logistics to get out for everybody. But, we did non-contact. We were able to take care of folks when they didn't feel safe to get out. That was something that we were pretty proud of. But that's a big part of our business. And we want to see everybody. But the delivery is a service that really nobody does like we do. We also have a texting service where you can text our main number to the pharmacy, and we can communicate with pharmacists, text, whoever. It comes right to all our computer systems. It's secure. And that's something that people really enjoy. They'll be sitting at home at night watching a Clemson football game, and they'll send in a refill request at 8:30 at night. In the morning we get there, it's done, boom, and it's delivered to their door the next day. I mean, I know it's my business and I'm biased, but I will tell you that's pretty neat to have it just right there when you need it the next day. And that's what we're kind of known for. The other thing we're known for is we're a compounding pharmacy. And so we do more compounding than just about anyone in the state. And we have free delivery all over the state for compounded prescriptions. We also do a lot of veterinary compounded prescriptions, which is actually another component of CBD that we didn't talk about.
Yep.
For animals. That's a big deal. But, no matter where you are in the state, we can still get your compounded prescription to you. It's a family business. My 84-year-old mother, bless her soul, works 4 days a week there, handles all my invoicing and bookkeeping. My wife works there, got 2 daughters, a gaggle of nieces and nephews over the years. And it's a family business. And I think people appreciate when they come in. You don't have to come in there but once or twice before somebody knows your name and knows what you need. And it really makes you feel like you're somebody. The chain drugstores that are out there, they're fantastic. They serve a purpose and help a lot of people. One thing you don't get in there is a lot of continuity. When you go in, just by their design, you'll see different faces every time you're in there because they have floaters that work. And people like coming in and knowing the face who they see, like being recognized. Being on a hospital campus, we carry most what everybody else doesn't carry. And so the chain pharmacies send us a lot of patients. If they don't have it, they'll tell you, try Lakeside. They'll have it. If they don't have it, they'll have it tomorrow. And
I would think that the main thing the chain stores are fantastic for would be your business. Mm-hmm. Because I'm telling you, the difference is night and day. So I'm guessing you have a phone number and a website.
We do. LakeRx.com is our website. Our phone number is 770-205-0290. Our email address, if you need to reach us, is freedelivery@lakerx.com. And again, when you call, one thing you'll love, you just get a person that answers. You don't have to push this, push that. The phone rings and we answer it. That's something that I have really, really fought for years and years. Is any pharmacy you call, I don't even if it's other independents now, most everybody is getting to where you have to push this to get somewhere. And I've never wanted to go that route. I went the texting route. And we've even done Zoom counseling when over COVID, when we needed to talk to some patients and we needed to see them and show them and explain some things. But technology is a great thing, and we want to employ that as best as possible. But there's no substitute to just good old fashioned communication.
I think that's awesome. And I'm going to put in a plug for John Ray as one of your drivers. You said you had a bunch of elderly guys. So I think you need to look at John Ray and see if you can't get him hooked up for an afternoon route here and there somewhere.
I've yet to advertise for that position. I get more and more people that come in that say, I want to drive. And for years and years, we delivered by boat on the lake. Right before they took Pine Isle down over there, people would come in from out of town and forget their inhaler or forget this. And Christy and I had our wedding reception there. And so we knew everybody in the management and everything. And they'll call Lakeside. They'll bring it over to you. And sure enough, we'd get off work, take a boat ride over and deliver their medication. Everybody would come in and say, I want to be the boat driver. I was like, yeah, get in line.
You're not fooling anybody. That's just an excuse to drive that big, fast boat. I know what you're doing. Well, I really want to thank you, Apollon. This has been fantastic, and we're way over time, and I hope people don't mind that listening. But this is very informative, and I do appreciate so much you taking the time to be with us this afternoon. That's Apollon Constantinides from Lakeside Pharmacy in Cumming, Georgia, talking about CBD. And for now, that is To Your Health.